Oh hey, what if I told you that this was completely the product of these 4 MIDI notes? And I'll play some different ones here. So stick around to learn some techniques that maybe you can use in your music. Thanks for joining me here. And I just wanted to show a technique that I've been playing with the last few weeks, months. It's kind of a fun, creative limitation that can maybe stretch your mind about what Ableton Live can do, and then maybe the output of that is a whole song, or maybe it's something you resample and slice up and then you can use in another composition. Anyway, so what is this limitation that we're talking about here? And the limitation is you're allowed one MIDI track playing no more than one note at a time. Simple as that. And then use creative MIDI routing, MIDI effects, all kinds of different techniques to then take that single stream of notes and turn it into a composition or some big thing that you can then draw on later on. So let's get started with that. So I've got a MIDI track here. I'm just going to double click and create a clip. And by default, we're 1 bar long. Let's make it 4 bars. And we're going to do something real basic. So I'm just looking, we're in F Locrian, everyone's favorite. And so we're just going to do something kind of simple to start with. But, you know, we're painting a picture. We're coloring by number. We're connecting the dots. Here's a sequence of notes. No more than one is playing at one time. And if we press play, oh, nothing, because this is just a pure MIDI track. So the next step is, okay, let's create a second MIDI track, give it a color, and we're going to call this one, let's just start with a piano to illustrate how you might get started. So in this piano track, we're going to find the grand piano instrument that comes with Live. And then what we need to do is change the MIDI from the channel called MIDI to our left. And then we want to choose pre-effects. That's part of our rules, is we have to choose pre-effects on MIDI so we can't cheat. And the last step is to turn on monitoring. So here we have the source of the MIDI notes. Okay, very exciting. Whole notes, very wholesome. And so, okay, what might we do? Well, arpeggiator, right? So with, you know, okay, that can get kind of old kind of quick. Maybe it is already. And then you might think, oh, well, let's reach for the chord device. We can turn that one note into some chords. So I'm going to just turn on the scale awareness here and put it before the arpeggiator. And let's just do like a 2, 4, 6. I think that makes a 7th chord. I could be wrong. I don't know. Okay, let's listen to that. Okay, now we're maybe getting somewhere, right? Kind of sounds like a chord progression. Little Britpop. Cool. Okay, so let's just mute this piano for now. We're going to come back to it. So one place I often start in a song is just laying down some rhythmic foundations. So we'll make a new track. Let's make a kick drum, and we'll find the ZS kick. This is a rack that I put together with controls that I like to control on kick drums. Okay, same drill. We need to get the MIDI from MIDI, pre-effects, monitor in. And in fact, I'm just gonna hold down Alt, and I'm gonna drag this one next to MIDI, and I'm gonna rename it template. Okay, so then we don't have to pick those anymore. We can just Alt drag this and make a new track. Whoops, I'm gonna take out the kick. Okay. Now we're back in the kick, so let's now press play. So we're getting whole notes, all kind of high register. So kind of the first thing I'm thinking is adjust the pitch down. Okay. That sounds more like a kick drum. Is there anything we want to change about it? Maybe make it a little more snappy. But let's say, well, whole notes aren't very exciting, are they? So you might say, oh, let's reach for an arpeggiator. But then it's like, well, we're then just going to get quarters or we're just going to get eighths. And you can't really do too much interesting stuff. And so how about a sequencer? And so I created a Max for Live device that I call Lens Stepper. And what Lens Stepper is it's an arpeggiator, but it's really focused on note durations. So whatever note value comes in, it's going to go out. It's not going to change the note, but it's just going to, if you hold a note, it's going to then play a pattern according to these durations. And so when it's set up like this, where each of these bars is like just one unit up, then you're going to get whatever this division base is. And so this is just going to emit eighth notes. So listen. Okay, that's indistinguishable from an arpeggiator, but here's where you can get more interesting. And so let's say we want to work in sixteenths, and I made it so that you could do funny divisions and for polyrhythmic stuff easily, because I find that to be very cumbersome in live. So this would be one way to get your, fifths or seventh notes or 13th notes or something like that out. So now we're on sixteenths. Okay, that's too much for a kick. So we're going to, go up like 4. Let's just go up 4. And now we should have quarters, right? Right. And then so maybe we make it more interesting with like a or a and then we'll do a 1/16 and then another quarter. And instead of 8 steps, let's do something fun and have 7 steps. Okay. And that's a little busier than I like, and so maybe we'll dial it back to like 12ths. We'll see how that gets along. Okay, so that kick is going. Let me just kind of mellow it out a little bit. Okay, I like to get my kicks like at -12. I just kind of find that if you work in a bass line like that, then the rest of the process can be easier as you get to know what your various bass lines are, like 12 for kicks, 18 for bass, and then figure it out. So what we're going to do then is copy our template. I'm holding down Alt and dragging from template over to here, and then I'll rename this hi-hat and color it. Oh, that color. That's a nice color. Let's put an analog in there. Did anyone think analog? Maybe if you saw it on the screen. Okay, so we're just going to have noise, and I'm pretty sure we can play with the color. So let's listen to this. So I'm going to turn off the kick, and just so we can focus on that. Oh yeah. Okay, so let's come up with something that makes cool patterns, maybe involving some math. And so let's use the Fibonacci sequence with the Fibonacci note echo. This was one of the first things I made in Max for Live. And so what it does is anytime as it receives a note on, it starts playing back this sequence of repeats. Each unit here is 1/6 of a note. That's how it came up. I'd like to speed that up, and maybe we can, but I do like that triplet feel. So let's go with like 12ths. And should we do one more iteration? Yeah, I like that. So now let's make this a little more interesting and snappy. Let's do an envelope follower. So that's going to track the loudness of this noise, and yeah, we're going to have to gain it up. And we're going to use that real peaky signal to do fun things with the noise color. So let's just try mapping that to the noise color right now. There's a weird, it's kind of an interesting feedback between this. Let's use the modulation delay. This is another device that I made. What this one does, it's an echo effect for modulation. So we could map this envelope follower to the input of modulation delay. And what that's going to do, let me shift it to like eighth notes here. The orange line is the input, and the blue line is the output signal. And so you can see when we get a spike in that input, that'll create a series of echoes in the blue signal. And so let's say we want to modulate filter in here, filter frequency. I promise this will get more interesting. Okay, because it's not really hi-hatty right now, is it? But it has a shape, and maybe all we need to do is just chop it up. In that situation, I reach for this little rack that I made called Shaper Volume. And it's just basically like LFO tool, but made with standard Ableton devices. So we have a shaper that lets you draw an arbitrary LFO curve. It's repeating at some rate. And then it's being used to modulate the gain knob of the utility. And so if I wanted to chop something up into little pieces, maybe what I would do is make a pulse wave like this, put the rate at 16ths. Let's give it a go. And then the depth is how far like it actually modulates it. So, or maybe it starts late. Okay, how does, I don't know, how do you think this is going to sound together? This needs more variety. Okay. I think this works better like that. And then let's just do something else for like an actual hi-hat. So this is just going to be some sort of a noise thing. So we'll grab our template and let's make sure it's under that ducking group so that I can talk over it. And we're going to call this hi-hat for real. And let's do something with operator. Why not? That's not a hi-hat at all. Okay, so we've got a pretty harsh source of noise there, so I'm going to put it through high pass filter. Okay, that'll be kind of neat. And then if we can do something kind of fast repeats, but then slow and sort of mixed in there. And so let's do that lens stepper again, and we're going to make it 16ths. Shorten the notes. So this gives us a count of how many of this note we've represented in this graph here. So then that'll help you kind of understand the looping boundary of this. Hit a certain, maybe you want to loop every 2 bars and then, so then, or every bar, and then so you just target 16/16th notes. Let's sharpen up the envelope here. Okay, what else can we do with this? Let's do I don't know, phaser or something. And I think this would really benefit from a cool delay effect to be a little out of time and make it more spatial. So for that kind of magical delay, is it timeless or is it Valhalla delayed? And I'm going to do the thing where I group this and make a dry chain. And then when we work with this, it's going to be full wet. And then this lets us just dial in volume levels for the dry and the wet signal versus dealing with the mix knob, because you don't always want to make the dry quieter when the delay is louder. But I do like ratio. And this kind of a strategy also lets you, do things like auto pan, like Biggie from Goose Goose might like to do. Okay, I'm kind of digging that. Um, okay, let's bring our piano back in. You know, okay, let's come up with a groovier sound than that. Okay, what we're going to do is replace this piano with some pads. So I'm going to just clear out, or I'll leave the chord there, and I'm going to clear out the piano, and then I'm going to let's use a virus. Okay, and I've learned I have to use this MIDI filter device in front of the Osiris plugin because the virus would respond to all kinds of poly pressure messages to change parameters, and I have all these poly pressure capable things. And so anyway, okay, so let's pick a pad sound, maybe something from Rob Papin. He's just such a legendary sound designer. We're going to go ahead and press play. That's fun. Let's see what else we've got. Okay, let's call this chords. Should I show it now? Sure, why not? Okay, so what I'm going to do is group this chords track, and I'm going to show it another device that I made, and it's called the Chord Ripper. Chord Ripper. What the Chord Ripper does is it distributes the notes of a chord across several tracks. And you can have as many tracks listening to the certain notes of the chord and play that note independently. Let me show you. I've got this track called Chords. I'm going to make a new track, just Command Shift T. I'm going to leave the MIDI from as is. I don't want it to receive the MIDI because what I'm going to do is add the Chord Ripper device to this track. And so this track is receiving MIDI from the MIDI channel. It's turning it into a chord, a seventh chord, who then passes through the Chord Ripper. This Chord Ripper is set up to only pay attention to channel 1, voice 1. You can have up to 16 different channels of Chord Ripper, so those would be 16 different chords that are being decomposed through your piece. For a given channel, you have, I think it's up to 16 voices, and the voices are corresponding with the note in the chord. It's the order in which it was received. So the order that a chord is played matters. Okay, so this one is set channel 1, voice 1. Now if we play, we're just hearing one note. If I turn off the Chord Ripper, now we hear the chords. So if I turn it on, we're just going to hear whatever first note came out. Now if we go to this track, we have a Chord Ripper. It's also set to voice 1, so let's make it voice 2. And then let's turn on this instrument. And let's duplicate this 2 more times. And I'm going to set this to voice 3 and voice 4. And so let's pick different presets for these other ones. Kind of fun. I made these sounds for the virus like 25 years ago, and here I can use them from a Virus B ROM file. Haha. Okay, so that's fun. Maybe those chords droning on are not super interesting to listen to, so I'm going to bring in a special prop here. I don't know if this is legit with the rules, but I'll allow it just based on creativity. If this doesn't fit with your view of the rules of this project, that's between you and your God. So, I'm not going to get in the way of that. But for me, this is okay. So I'm going to make a new audio track. And what I have attached to that is this little contact microphone. And what this does is it translates vibration into electrical impulses. And so this can be a fun source of rhythmic variation because you can just sit here and tap it, and you're not doing anything sophisticated other than just kind of making some signals at, your organic production. So let's go ahead and set this one to record. Cool enough. I'm not used to doing stuff live, so it's going to come out pretty cheesy, but that's okay because I'm doing it. Are you? You should do it. It's kind of fun to do this. Anyway, okay, so I just said, how about these 4 bars? And then I'm going to not quantize it. We're not quantizing today. We're not. This is what I put in. This is what we're going to get out. And that's the end of that story. That's why we did it, is because it's a human, and otherwise I'd just be clicking pixels on a monochrome display. Okay, that's great. I prefer that strongly over the quantized version. I don't know about you. Whoa. God. What about this? Am I just burning through discs? Whatever. Persecute me. Okay, we'll have fun with that. So then we got to put the vocoder in the audio track. The carrier is external from this group 7. And let's call this one chord group. From chord group, post FX, that's fine. So now check out what we get here. I'm going to duplicate this. Is it driving you bonkers yet? Okay, let's do something different. Yeah, and the one thing we need still is bass. So let's get to bassin'. So copy our template. We're going to call this one BS. And let's find bass. There's an instrument called bass. It's got to be good, right? Or do we want the bass line? Let's go bass line. That's fun. Okay, so for a bass line, we want it to kind of walky, maybe a little groovy. Maybe we'll just lean on like the arpeggiator to kind of get things started. Because remember, we're just receiving a single note. And let's just get us started with quarters. I think that's super cool. But maybe we can do some interesting stuff there. So we're going to go back to our buddy Len Stepper. Okay, so here we are back at 8ths, and so I want this to be in the basis of 16ths. So we could have just done 16ths over here, but, that's kind of fun. Maybe we can do something a little bit more interesting with the pitches. And so here we have a key stepper. Maybe you guessed it. This is another Max for Live device that I've made because I was doing stuff like this and I wanted to be able to shift note values using kind of a step sequencer-like approach. And so the key stepper advances through its pattern whenever it receives a note on event. And so the first note it receives, since we're in, one thing to explain, we're in relative mode. C3 is like the starting point of, basically it's like if everything is C3, we're not going to change anything about the note. Let's just do a demo and you'll see. In relative mode, maybe I want every other note to be an octave higher. Or an octave lower. Or maybe just every fourth note. Let's turn down some of that portamento. That makes it evil. You know, you can do things with circle of fifths here and kind of not go wrong, right? And so what we're doing is the second note is shifted up by, what is that? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. Back to normal. Down 5 steps. Back to normal. Anyway. Let's do some complex modulation, as my boy Mordio would say. And we're going to use this device that I made called Modulation Lerp to change the filter cutoff frequency in this baseline 101. So let's set that up first. So first I'm going to map the Modulation Lerp output to the filter cutoff in the baseline. That's set. So let's map this LFO to that value. Okay, so now it's just going up and down. And the way that Modulation Lerp works is we're going to output this orange line, and the orange line is constrained between limit A and limit B. Okay, so we're going to map this LFO to limit B and this LFO to limit A, and then we're going to we're going to run them at different frequencies or maybe locked into the tempo. Let's say one is at 3/4 and the other one is at 2 bars. So they do kind of fairly different things, but there is going to be some rhythmic intersection between them. Maybe it should be 1.5 and 2. That's kind of pretty. And then this one, let's run it at like 1/8. Isn't that gorgeous, huh? Okay, so let's play this. That's pretty neat, huh? So when you're doing this, you really should just press record and go. And then, you could record all your automation as you're going. It's fun. You can build up, like we've got a little library of these MIDI clips that we, have very, very different feelings, emotions, all that kind of stuff. And keep in mind, all we're doing is playing this one little line, Okie dokie. Anyhow, let me know your ideas. What are you doing with this? How are you changing the rules? How did you negotiate that with your God? Because, I need all the help I can get. So, let's share what we're doing here. And that's why we're here, right? And so I'll see you in the next one. Take care now. Bye.